Jaylin, appreciate the time. Thanks so much for doing this. How are you?
I'm doing good, man. How are you doing?
Well, I'm fantastic. So I always love to hear about people's journey. I was familiar with you when you were at Virginia Tech. I talked to your head football coach before the start of the season about you. But tell me what Jaylin Lane was like at Middle Tennessee.
Yeah, man. I feel like I've been the same kind of guy. I'm just a hard worker, put your head down and go. Coming into Middle Tennessee, though, I was just a lot smaller than I am now. So kind of where I built that, love for the weight room, that work ethic, and grew and, became the player I am today.
I always love the story where someone gets overlooked. I went to a smaller school. I went to Temple University, and I saw a lot of guys like Hassan Reddick was a walk-on, and he's gone on to be a first-round pick and have some good seasons in the NFL. For you, why was Middle Tennessee the original landing spot and it wasn't some big-time school?
Yeah, like I said, I was probably coming out of high school. I might have been 160 soaking wet.
Yeah.
I wasn't that big, but I was a fast guy, twitchy, get the ball in my hands, go to work. And Middle Tennessee came along later in my senior year. I love the coaching staff that was there at the time, and I decided to go there.
Even with you being smaller, like you mentioned, when you were in high school, were you like a big deal in high school, or did it take a while for you to make the varsity?
I played varsity, like started in 10th grade, I played varsity, and then, through senior year. But, it definitely took me a minute to come into, my own with like speed and being able to, like my senior year I had 1,600 yards, but before that, I might have had 500 my junior year, you know what I'm saying? So, I definitely took a leap my senior year.
Jaylin Lane here with us. So how'd you wind up at Virginia Tech?
I entered the portal, and I wanted to, go somewhere where I could see myself, being a good fit and, being in a good atmosphere, things like that. And, Virginia Tech, in my opinion, they got the best fans in the country. So, everything just kind of aligned, and, I decided to go there and, just try to further my career.
How much more do you still feel like, Jaylin Lane, that you have to prove with the up and down, right, statistical college career that you had?
I'd say, stats don't mean everything in my opinion, but, I definitely feel like I got a lot to prove. Coming in through this draft process, I feel like I've been a guy with not a lot of expectation because of my, statistical stuff the past two seasons. But, I feel like I've been turning heads at the Senior Bowl, at the Combine, and, I plan to do that once I get to a team as well.
If you get into my building, right, let's say if I'm an NFL general manager, what type of player do you feel like Jaylin Lane could be at the next level in the NFL?
Yeah, I feel like I could be an impact guy from day one on offense and special teams. I'm very versatile, play inside, outside of my career, punt return, kick return stuff. So, I feel like I can make a huge impact on any team.
Now, I think I know the answer to this, but I'm not 1,000% sure. Jaylin Lane, what's your favorite play looking back at your college career?
Favorite play? I got a couple, but just from this past season, punt return touchdown versus Marshall was up there for sure.
That was the one. It's unbelievable because you were just going through everyone in that play, and even when the guys were trying to like crunch on down on you and tackle you, it's like you just found the perfect opening to just go, 50, 58 yards, whatever it was, to get into the end zone. And when you got into the end zone, you knew it was an awesome play because you just let out this scream, and you could tell that there was a lot of elation in that moment. It was pretty cool.
Yeah, it's definitely one of my best plays. Just, it was a risky catch. A lot of guys are afraid of catching that, but, I decided to return it, and, luckily, I made a play and, got in the box. So, it was just one of those plays, it's a lot of passion. You got a lot of passion for the game, and it kind of came out right there.
Did you always know that you were fast when you were younger?
Yeah, I was always, even when I played baseball as a kid, I was always batting first so I could, get on base and steal. So, I've always been a faster guy. I've been small, so if I'm going to be little, I got to be fast.
Yeah, and we know, hey, speed kills, and it's one thing to be fast as a wide receiver, but, if you could be a third, fourth-round pick, having that return ability on special teams, that's got to be a big selling point to a lot of teams as well, if maybe they're on the fence on drafting you.
Oh, yeah, most definitely. That's, every meeting I've had throughout this process, I've had meetings about special teams as well. So, I feel like, the teams see, that I can bring that to the table, and I plan on doing so.
So we know the game is 3 phases. We know it's a special mentality to be a wide receiver, but there's a different mindset on special teams. What is your special teams mindset? Just curious.
I treat special teams just as important as offense, in my opinion. You can change the game at special teams. I've done it in, throughout my career. Just, one big return, or even at gunner or something, one forced fumble, one muff punt can change a game. So, I take pride in what I do on special teams. So I'm excited for it.
Would you rather catch a 60-yard touchdown or have a 60-yard punt return for a touchdown?
It depends on how I caught the touchdown. If I was wide open, I'd take the punt return. But if it's like I caught it short, made 11 guys miss, and scored, I might take the receiver. It just depends on how it looks.
Love that. Jaylin Lane here with us. What type of football fan were you growing up as a kid?
So I grew up just being around football because my pops is a high school football coach, and he he brainwashed me into liking the Steelers. But just in that Hines Ward, Torrey Polamalu, Jerome Bettis era of Pittsburgh, so that's when I was really watching football as a kid. So I fell in love with Pittsburgh, and I'd say I'm still a fan today, but I'm gonna be a fan whoever called my phone in a couple of weeks.
Yeah, it could change real quickly. You could be a Steeler fan today. The Ravens call you. Forget about the terrible towels. You become a Ravens fan, right?
Oh, for sure.
You mentioned Hines Ward. He was such a tough football player. To me, he should be a Hall of Famer. He was a tremendous wide receiver, but the first thing I think about was his toughness and his blocking. What did you love so much about Hines Ward that maybe drew you to him when you were growing up as a kid?
Yeah, I just say his playmaking ability and that toughness you talk about. I feel like I play with a certain level of toughness as well. Just even with and without the ball in my hands. So I feel like me watching him, he's really why I wanted to play receiver. If being honest, just watching him as a kid, just helped me develop that love for the game and to play receiver. So.
How about the wide receivers in the league now? Who are some that really pique your interest, Jaylin Lane?
Yeah, my top two, I've said this, I'm going to stand on this, Amon-Ra and Scary Terry. Those are my favorite two. Just, the guys kind of similar build to me, but, their contested catchability, route running, all that is elite work. So, I love watching those guys.
Now, I know that you enjoy watching them two the most. Do you think those two are the best wide receivers in the NFL, or is that a different conversation for you?
No, I already said it. I said top three. In my opinion, I'm going Jettis, Terry, Amon-Ra, no specific order.
Gotcha.
Top three guys I like watching. So
I could tell you maybe got some blowback by the way that you said that. Sure. Where's Jamar Chase? What is this guy? He doesn't know what he's talking about.
I'm going to stand on
it. Well, welcome to the NFL. You say one thing and it goes all over the internet. It's a fun world that we live in. Jaylin Lane here with us for a few more moments. So how is this for you right now? There's so much of it that it's out of your control. There's 2 weeks left. There's very little that you could do. You're going to get thrown under a microscope, analyzed every way possible. With it now being 2 weeks away from the draft starting, just with this being such a life-changing moment for you, what are the emotions right now?
It's a lot of anticipation. I'm really just trying to live in the moment right now, though. It's been a blessing to be a part of this process and, to go to the Senior Bowl, go to the Combine, and, be able to showcase my talents at these great events. So I'm just, I've done all I can do at this point. They've done my meetings, done, everything at the Combine, Senior Bowl, all that. So now I'm just, just enjoying time with family, and this little bit of downtime I get, because I know once I get that phone call, we back rolling. So, just living in the moment.
Who were some of the biggest meetings that you were like, okay, this went really well, I feel good about it?
Honestly, I don't know, because between the Senior Bowl, the Combine, and then even Zooms and stuff I've done, I can't say I've had a bad meeting. I feel like all my meetings were really well. A lot of teams talk highly of me. So, I have no clue what's going to happen or who's going to call my phone.
Have you met with the Steelers?
Yeah, I have. I met with them at both the Combine and the Senior Bowl. So
now, you growing up as a Steeler fan, right? I'm sure you like Mike Tomlin. That had to be pretty neat getting a chance to meet with the Steeler brass.
So, Mike Tomlin, he's one of the few head coaches that came to the Senior Bowl. Yeah, he was there night one. I went with him, shook his hand. It was a kind of a surreal moment, I'm not going to lie. It was pretty cool.
What was that like for you? I know you had the third fastest wide receiver time at the combine. Obviously, you knew you were going to run a heck of a time, but that must have been pretty cool when you got a chance to step back and reflect on it, right?
Oh yeah, most definitely. It's a long time training just to run fast for 4 seconds. That's what they say. So yeah, like after I ran the 4.3, I heard my family in the stands and they were going crazy. So it was just like I was like I could take a deep breath after I ran that, but also I was like, all right, I'm not done. I still got to run routes, do all this and that. So it was definitely a cool experience.
It's a lot of pressure because I'm not the biggest fan of the combine. I understand the importance of it. I think the meetings are more important and the teams getting to know you. But your tape is what the tape is. You've been in college for 4 or 5 years, and it's like, okay, this 140 time could make or break my draft profile. It's really wild of a process.
Yeah, for sure. Especially like I said at the beginning, I was a guy coming in. I don't think I had that many expectations, so, me being able to pop that 4.3 and, have a good vert and all that, and be able to showcase my athleticism, I feel like I turned some heads and, made some guys look at my film a little bit more, analyze like, all right, this guy can play. So, yeah.
Well, obviously, right, football was a big influence in your life growing up. You said your dad was a high school coach. Just how about that relationship? I know he's your dad, but also him being a high school coach, had to be some neat experiences, right?
Oh yeah. My dad, that's my dog, man. He's my, him, my mom, my fiance, they're my number one fans. But going through high school with him, he was definitely hardest coach I ever had on me. He made sure that nothing was handed to me. I had to earn everything I got because he knew that it was going to be easy for people to say, you just getting it because your dad the head coach or this and that. But, if I'm the best player on the team and I prove it, and, they can't say anything. So, he just kind of instilled that mindset in me. And, but now he done took his coach hat off, put his dad hat on. He can do no wrong in his eyes almost now. His support is amazing.
When did you realize in life, hey, you don't just like football, but you also love it, and you realize, okay, I have a chance at going to the NFL one day?
I'd say I found the love for the game really young, but, obviously every kid dreams of going to the league, but it's like once you like get to that level, like, all right, this is I'm actually pretty good. Probably like my senior year of high school is when, had 30 touchdowns, 1,600 yards. I'm like, all right, I'm pretty good. Like, I obviously been working hard. I love the game since I was a kid, but now it's like, all right, you can seriously make it. You just got to keep working. So.
There's always these moments. Was this just a stupid, good high school game that you had where it's like 300 yards and like 3 touchdowns? Is there one that jumps out to you like that?
Yeah, I had 4 touchdowns, 287 yards, and I got hurt in the third quarter. So,
are you upset when you get hurt? It's like you did everything that you could do, but if you would have been able to play the fourth quarter, who knows what you could have done?
Yeah, I know exactly. It was just one of them things. I just tweaked my ankle a little bit, but. It was one of them games like, just keep going,
For people that doubt you, whether they say, oh, you're too small or, oh, the numbers weren't what they should have been in college, what do you say to people that doubt you and why they should start to believe in Jaylin Lane?
Oh, man, I don't even listen to it. You can say, I try to block out any noise, good and bad, because I know they'll flip on me quick. So, one thing that rings in my head is my dad always saying, never let another man put a lid on you. Just meaning, the sky is not even the limit for me. I can go farther than the sky if I wanted to, so just keeping that mindset just helps me, just be true to who I am and continue to work hard and, never let anybody silence me or, any doubt get to me.
I know that you're going to tell me that you're just happy to get drafted wherever you get drafted. But is there a quarterback or two that you would be like, man, it'd be really cool if I got drafted by that team to link up with that quarterback?
Man, I don't know. It's at least, I know it's at least 32 good quarterbacks in the league. You're a starter on any team, you're a good quarterback. I don't care. So, honestly, like you said, I don't care, man. Yeah, I could.
GMs take notes. He's not going to say a stupid quote to the media. That's what I take from there. Because if you would have got on it and been like Josh Allen or Patrick Mahomes, it would have been a headline out. Jaylin Lane wants to play with Patrick Mahomes. Then people be like, oh, well, he doesn't want to play with Justin Herbert. So that's always a question. I feel rotten asking it, but you never know if there's sometimes a story of like, oh, you grew up watching, Aaron Rodgers and how surreal something like that would be. But that's got to be kind of nuts for you, though, that you're going to be going into a locker room where there are some big-time players that you grew up watching. And I know it's a business, but that's going to be pretty cool that that's going to be right around the corner.
Oh, yeah, definitely, man. It's all a blessing, man. Not a lot of people get to experience this. So, like I said, I'm just taking it in every moment. And I know when I get into that locker room, I'm going to be ecstatic, ready to work and, be able to provide, help for my team, things like that. So.
Well, Jaylin, really enjoyed the conversation today. Good luck. We hope to hear your name nice and early in the NFL draft, and thanks for doing this.
No problem. Thank you.